Time to kick off your week in the world of hockey. It is the Monday edition of the Athletic Hockey Show. It's Ian Mendes, Julian McKenzie with you. And tell you what, Julian, maybe this is the foresight of our producer, Chris Flannery. Maybe it's just luck. I don't know what it is. It's a three-headed monster today on the Athletic Hockey Show, the Monday edition. We got Mark Lazerus with us. And look, Laz wrote a terrific column on the weekend on the James Reimer situation where the Sharks goalie declines to wear San Jose's Pride jersey in the pregame warmup. We're going to get to that. But Julian, we got to tell the listeners, like, we booked Laz well in advance of this story, right?
We did.
Yeah,
we did.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, chances are something like this is going to happen every single weekend in the NHL. So, you know, if there's a social justice issue in hockey, it's probably going to happen regardless. Like you were saying off the air, it's like, 0 days without an incident. You don't need more than single digits in the NHL.
I'm glad that at least that we're going to talk about other fun stuff like the poll that you and Ian Scott Powers are putting together on NHL goal songs. Like, that'll be cool. I think we're going to touch up on the Coyotes as well. But the fact that Pride nights in the National Hockey League are becoming the story that they've become because of players opting out. The fact that the intention, the well-meaningness of these types of nights, the purpose is sort of being lost in all this. I really wonder what individual teams will do going forward. I wonder what the league itself will do going forward with those types of nights, because I don't want to have teams do these nights and then my first thing is thinking, well, which guy is not going to wear a Pride Night jersey? That should not be the point of it. And for a guy like James Reimer, he essentially made himself the main character of that night, which he should not have been.
Okay, but now here, I'm going to just throw this out and you guys tell me, and I think this is a great debate to have.
Sure.
How much blame lies with us in the media in terms of, look, 18 guys wore the Pride jersey, right? Whatever it was on the weekend for San Jose. Do we need to put more, and I know, Laz, you kind of touched on this too, right? In your piece, is it should we be focusing on them? Yes. Okay. James Reimer didn't wear it. Ivan Provorov didn't wear it, but should we be doing a better? I thought what Scott Laughton did in Philadelphia is phenomenal, right? What Scott Laughton and James Van Riemsdyk did was phenomenal. And I wonder, are we a little bit sometimes with the media, we don't like taking the criticism, right? But I wonder, how much of this is balancing? Has there been enough done on, 18 guys wore a jersey on the weekend for San Jose, or am I wrong on that? I just want to have that conversation.
It's tough for me. Sean Gentili had a tweet the other night about how just exhausting this is to have this conversation every single time a team has a Pride night, because very few of these have gone off without a hitch. Either the whole team has bailed on it to protect a teammate, or one guy has stood out like Reimer and Provorov did, and it becomes the story. And yeah, that's I wrote a column, I think it was last year, about how you just eventually run out of outrage, right? And it gets harder and harder to get worked up about these things. But that's the thing. That's how you lose this battle, is when you start giving up on it. When you start saying, you know what, I just don't want to fight this fight anymore. And we all feel it. We all feel it. God knows, on Saturday, I'm like, I had a poker night that night. Northwestern was playing in the second round of the NCAA tournament. The last thing I wanted to do was sit down and write some kind of column that's going to, be a big deal and require all this. But, you have to keep saying it. You have to keep pointing it out, because when we start ignoring it, then that's when, that's when the bigotry wins. That's when the homophobes win. Now, that said, the column I wrote was good for the Sharks, right? They didn't do what the Wild and the Rangers did, which was bail completely. They prioritized one teammate getting bad PR over an entire section of their community, and the idea of hockey being a welcoming open space. That's cowardly. I don't care if the reason's because of the Russian law that's criminalizing, so-called propaganda. I don't care if it's because of someone's religious beliefs. You don't have to prioritize that one person over everybody who pays a ticket to see you, everybody who tunes in to watch you. So I was really glad for the Sharks that they said, screw it, we're going to still wear it. And, Connor Murphy had told me, hey, we're going to wear it. And, all the other Flyers wore it. We need more Scott Laughtons. We need more Van Riemsdyk. We need more Trevor Van Riemsdyk. That family's great. We need more Logan Coutures. Logan Couture said, hey, you know what? Reimer's got the right to do what he wants to do. And he's right. He does. But we've got the right to wear these jerseys because it means something to us. This is the freaking Bay Area we're talking about. I mean, of all cities to say, ew, gay people, that's not the one to do it. Like, I don't know how James Reimer can play in that city ever again after this.
Here's something else I want to add to with regards to media coverage. And this is something that I think the NHL has to deal with more than in the NFL, where they have my cause, my cleats. And yeah, everyone on the team is supposed to have their causes, but certain causes or certain cleats stand out more than others. Or the NBA, where it's more of an individual sport and players, it's not necessarily all that uncommon to see a player kind of step up and do their own thing. But sometimes we've seen players step up as teams and do protests. But the NHL and hockey as a sport has lifted itself and kind of lifts up its chest with pride as a sport that insists upon doing things as a team and playing for the logo on the front and not the name on the back, as some way to kind of, sort of discourage individuality, all in the name of team. A sport that prides itself on that, and sometimes its fans will use that as a way to detract from other sports. You can't have that going on, and then when an NHL player decides he's not going to wear this type of jersey, be like, oh, well, what's the big deal? Like, I find it at the NHL more than any other of these big four sports.
Yeah.
Like, it is so much harder to ignore that part of the story because of how they centered themselves as the sport where everyone's supposed to be a team, and individuality, again, discouraged. Let's be real here. Like, considering the how we beg for personalities to be personalities, we know that is the case because of how they want everyone to be in uniform. So the idea that someone would not wear a particular uniform is always going to stand out, no matter how much we want to make up stories like James Van Riemsdyk and Scott Lawton, or any of the fans who were in attendance at that San Jose game. If you look at Marissa and Jemmy's thread, where she got to get some stories from queer hockey fans who were at that San Jose game, like, we should be talking about that, or how the Sharks use their platform to discuss how LGBTQIA kids go into locker rooms and the language that they hear, or whether they go into class and what they hear too. Like, we should have been talking about how they use their platform for good, but because of what James Reimer did and because of the culture of the sport, it is something completely different all on its own. And I really think, like, if you're an NHL team, if you're the league and you see that, regardless of wherever you stand on this, which I think there is a right and a wrong here, but wherever you stand on this, I can't imagine you being in the league office and seeing that, a Pride Night thing is happening and all anyone wants to talk about is how a player didn't want to partake. Like, I don't see that as a good thing. I don't see that as something that is good for your message that hockey is for everyone. Or if you just care about dollars and cents and people getting into it, I don't think that's a good thing for your bottom line. So that's my biggest thing on that.
No, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, why don't we let the listeners hear a little bit from San Jose goaltender James Reimer. Reimer did do a media availability. He did release a statement, read the statement, and took a couple of questions. Here's a little sampling of James Reimer and what he said in regards to Pride Night.
I get what the message is, I think, I think people are trying to show support for the community, and I'm sure people in the community feel marginalized. So it's people trying to come along them in a public way, and support them. And I think, again, for me, to some extent, that's what you want to do is you want to love them, but where not to keep reiterating what I'm saying, but where it intersects for our Christian and the way I personally and the way that people close to me in my life interpret the Bible is you love them, but you can't support the activity or lifestyle.
All right, so there you have it from James Reimer, his explanation. Okay, a couple things. What I really liked on the weekend, Brian Burke, who obviously this is a cause that means so much to him with his late son Brendan, and Brian has been at the forefront of this for more than a decade. Okay, Brian Burke, I'm just going to read this statement because obviously, Burkey's with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He released a statement on the weekend, or he's quoted as saying the following on James Reimer. He says, quote, "I repeat that I am extremely disappointed. I wish players would understand that the Pride sweaters are about inclusion and welcoming everybody. A player wearing Pride colors or tape isn't endorsing a set of values or enlisting in a cause. He is saying you are welcome here, and you are in every single NHL building." I think Brian Burke gets it, right? Like he gets the core of it, that you don't have to, if you wear that jersey, you're just saying, you're sending a message that I believe, I guess. So the questions would become things like, okay, would James Reimer accept a gay teammate? My guess is no, but again, it's a difficult one to walk. I also wonder, guys, is it easy for San Jose to make this decision because James Reimer is set to be a UFA at the end of the year? I ask you this, and I agree. I really like what San Jose did. They went ahead with it. They used their Twitter feed to just post messaging about the cause all night long. I thought they really did a great job organizationally. But is it easier to do this? Let's say, and I'm just going to think of somebody who's under contract for a long time there. Tomas Hertl, Carlson, whatever. Could you do the same thing if you had a guy under contract for 4 or 5 more years? Or is it easier to do because, hey, look, this guy's done. He's based on age, contract, all that stuff.
I would like to think the Sharks, knowing the people in that organization and knowing what Logan Couture said, would have done this regardless. The question I have is whether James Reimer would have done it if he were locked up for 4 or 5 more years, if he knew he was still going to be in that, and again, in that city of all cities, if he was going to become some kind of pariah because of his beliefs. I'm not so sure he does it. I don't know. I can't tell you that, but to me, it's beside the point, right? All of this is beside the point. Any nuance or semantics or any kind of argument you can have of why you wouldn't wear the jersey is, like Berkey said, completely missing the point. Putting on a jersey with a rainbow will not turn James Reimer gay. It will not offend his delicate sensibilities. Just like if they had some kind of Muslim appreciation night and Nazem Kadri was on his team and he put on a jersey, it wouldn't make him Muslim all of a sudden. That's not
Oh, sorry. I was just.
No, go ahead.
It's just funny you make up that example because James Reimer tried to use that justification.
Right. Which just like, it's like The Simpsons. It's Chief Wiggum. Dig up, stupid. Like, it just gets dumber and dumber here. Like, this, I don't want to, I'm certainly not going to go on a public anti-religion screed. I'm not anti-religion. But what bothers me is when you have guys who start cherry picking the things they want, right? They start, I don't believe that, working on the Sabbath is a sin, but I believe that this line that's also in the Old Testament is a sin. And I'm going to ignore these paragraphs and what this guy's all about. And that's what drives me nuts here. I mean, look, I'm a Jew. I have been to church many, many times to celebrate friends' weddings, baptisms, things like that. I've had Christians and Muslims over my house to have a Passover Seder. We celebrate each other's culture that way. I'm a Jew. I'm not even a practicing Jew, really, but it matters to me that it's a cultural, ethnic thing to me. And if I had a friend who said, "Ooh, I wouldn't go to your house to have a Seder," that would offend my Christian sensibilities. I'd be like, all right, well, you're an idiot then. You don't understand how this works. And I don't know if I really want to hang around with you anymore. So James Reimer's telling on himself here. A lot of guys are telling on themselves here. And at least we know about, this is the one thing I'll say. And again, because the Sharks still wore the jerseys, we know this about James Reimer now. He had to go out and make a statement. He had to address the media. We don't know about the Minnesota Wild. We don't know about the New York Rangers. There are certainly cowardly people on that team hiding behind a teammate by not wearing that jersey where they were on the fence about it. That's the problem. We need more San Jose Sharks and more Philadelphia Flyers. That's what we need.
I just want to go through 2 parts of James Reimer's statement that really just confound me. And I hope you guys can see the contradiction in that. Let me just, it's the last 2 paragraphs of the statement. In this specific statement, in this specific instance, I am choosing not to endorse something that is counter to my personal convictions, which are based on the Bible, the highest authority in my life. I strongly believe that every person has value and worth, and the LGBTQIA plus community, like all others, should be welcomed in all aspects of the game of hockey. You can't say one phrase. You can't say one and the other. You have to pick.
Yeah.
I bet, like, fine. You put out a statement, you tried to get ahead of this and you didn't just duck. But I think he has to realize that what his own statement is contradictory and confusing and just all the more disappointing. And I'm sure, Ian, you noticed it a lot more, and maybe you noticed it too, Mark, but there are a lot of fans who are disappointed that James Reimer did this. Like, I don't know what fans how fans feel about Ivan Provorov beyond him being a player, but there are a lot of people who like genuinely like James Reimer as a person. Like when he was a Toronto Maple Leaf, just with the way that he kind of carried around himself, this happy-go-lucky guy, that endeared himself to a ton of fans. And I think the reason why this particular instance resonates with I think when you look back on it, it's going to resonate with fans a lot more than the Ivan Provorov thing, is because this is somebody that I think people kind of looked at as a good guy in the National Hockey League. Like we look at how the league is and the personalities and the players that are there, and a lot of assumptions are made that, some guys are not good because of the culture and as it is. But I think people kind of looked at a guy like James Reimer and thought, no, this is a good dude. This is one of the so-called good ones. And I think I just think of like Steve Dangle's LFR, Leafs fan reactions, for those who don't know what those are, where basically like after every Leafs game, he will go on YouTube and he will talk about the game that happened before. He spent like a couple minutes just talking about James Reimer. This is a guy he was a big fan of, and he was just disappointed. And I know he's not alone in that. And I think there were a lot of people who felt genuinely disappointed at how he reacted to all of this.
So, when I look at this as a bigger picture issue, I think what happens is in a lot of these cases, and Laz, I thought your column on the weekend was perfect, right? Perfect. Like you nailed it. You wrote with passion, intelligence, you articulated it perfectly. The issue becomes, though, like people who read that, it's either reinforcing what you believe if you're on one side of the fence, or you're just like, stop, stick to sports.
Oh, God.
Right?
I have not changed one heart or mind in all the years I've been writing things about anything.
And that's
we know that.
Okay? We know. And it's so easy to get on Twitter and dunk on James Reimer and do all these things. The only way this type of issue gets kind of progresses is with education. And you know what I would love to see? I would love to see every year, and whether it's at rookie camp, development camp, started training camp, get somebody like Brock McGillis, get somebody in the game, Brian Burke, whoever it is. And instead of just kind of trying to shoehorn this pride night in the middle of the regular season, when everyone's tensions are running high, take some time to educate the players in a less tense setting. Meaning, hey, we're going to give Brock McGillis 30 minutes in training camp. He's going to address the room. He's going to talk about his own experience. He's going to talk about why it's important to open your mind and your locker room doors to people from this community, and see if that's the way you can do. I just don't know that we're going to change anybody's mind.
A lot of teams are doing this. Brock McGillis does work with NHL teams. Sheldon Kennedy does work with NHL teams. This is a big part of training camp. In the wake of the Kyle Beach story in Chicago, Scott and I talked to Danny Wirtz and Jamie Faulkner, who run the Blackhawks, about the initiatives they're taking. And they do bring in speakers throughout the year. It's not just in training camp now. Like a lot of teams are doing this, but it's so hard, again, to change. I really think the only way you're going to change, like you mentioned, would James Reimer accept a gay teammate? That's a fascinating question, because what do you hear the most? Like, these macho manly men in an NFL locker room, in an NBA locker room, an NHL locker room, a baseball locker room. You hear the word love thrown around all the time. We're fighting for each other. We love each other. I love that man. He's my team. He's my brother. I do think that that's the way forward, is by having openly gay people in the NHL. And that's how what you're living with and eating with and traveling with and sharing a locker room with. That's how you overcome these prejudices that are just ingrained in so many guys. The problem is, what kind of man is going to come out as gay in this NHL? It's a catch-22. We need people to come out. There are certainly, statistically speaking, there is absolutely certainly gay people in the NHL right now, and certainly have been through the years. But I don't blame a single one of them for not wanting to come out during their careers, because look around you. They don't want you.
And once that player, because like, especially if it's like one player's like, I'm going to start it, the media storm that's going to come with that player.
Remember Michael Sam? in the
Oh my
NFL.
God, Michael Sam. I remember Michael Sam. That was a whole media firestorm.
And let me say one thing here.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to have a gay friend to accept gay people.
No,
Like, that's not how this should work. But
No.
realistically speaking, I hate to say it, that's probably how it has to work.
no. And one thing we have to say too, like, and one thing that has to be pointed out in the jersey as well that the Sharks wore, like they have the rainbows on it, but the shark is decorated in the colors of the transgender flag too.
Mhm.
And we have to remember we're saying LGBTQ IA plus. Like there's a whole spectrum of non-binary and sexual orientation that gets covered. That gets covered in all this, and it's not just gay people. And
Right.
when you talk about education, like that has to, I mean, I'm sure that it's already being included in all of that when those players are learning about it.
And down here in the States, you have states all over the country that are legislating these people out of existence.
Absolutely.
Like their lives are at risk.
Absolutely. My one thing about teams being educated on this, I would hope it would not be done in lieu of having these nights. I still think it's important for people to, for teams to have them, especially now with the way that they've been gone about before and how other leagues also have these nights. If you were to say, okay, we're just going to kind of drop them just so our players could just be educated privately, like who knows what could happen in those instances. Also, a lot of those dudes who would be getting that education, grown men. There's a reason why Brock McGillis is doing a lot of work with like young impressionable teenagers when they're still able to learn about, you know, how the language they use could be very harmful, or how they look at other, you know, teammates who may be gay or non-binary or transgender or whatnot. Like I would like to think that, you know, for all the flaws that you know, people of my generation and people younger than me have to deal with, I think there's a lot of people from those generations who are very progressive. I think if you are someone like Brock McGillis, who goes into an NHL locker room and you do your absolute best to educate NHL players, and maybe this is just me being cynical here, fine, you might, you know, change one person's mind or two people's minds, or you might have someone see it in a completely different light. You may very well just have someone like a James Reimer who is steadfast in their beliefs, and maybe they'll look at you and be like, hey, no, like I don't have any issue with what you do. That's your business. I'm still just not going to wear this jersey. Like I think that's what it is with James Reimer too. And maybe that just goes into that good guy persona that a lot of people just felt that he was. I think he would be that guy who, you know, if you look at him, it's like, yeah, like whatever, like I don't have any issue with you. I just don't feel to wear this jersey. And because of what these jerseys represent and because of what these nights represent, I know a lot of people are going to come on here and be like, oh man, these are just things of virtue signaling or whatever. But like the message that's behind them, where it's just a simple way for teams to show that they're, you know, anyone is welcome to these games, you know, that can't be lost in that. And also for people who want to say that too, would we be having these discussions? Would James Reimer and Ivan Provorov be so steadfast in not wearing these jerseys if these jerseys did not matter? If this was just simple virtue signaling? Just a thought.
I want to say this. I mean, 20, 30 years ago, can you imagine any of these teams wearing these jerseys?
No.
Now we're at a point where it's isolated guys. Okay, this guy won't, this guy. We're making progress here. And like you said, that Brock McGillis and Sheldon Kennedy, they do work with the younger guys because younger generations they inevitably more progressive than the last. My daughter's 11 years old. She's in 5th grade. You know, she has, you know, pride stickers all over her water bottle that she brings to school every day. It's just a thing. Like if you're 11 years old right now, and, you know, this isn't the case in every part of the country, but you don't even understand, like, why would anyone have a problem with anybody? You know, we have the news on, we'll have MSNBC on, and they're talking about some law in Florida about, you know, legislating against trans people. And my daughter will be like, the hell's wrong with these people? Why would you do that? It's going to get better. It keeps getting better. We just want to push it along and get it faster. But it's, you know, like you said, Julian, these are grown men. They're set in their ways. It's really hard to change the mind of a grown-up.
And it is very difficult when a person who a lot of people, you know, admire or are fans of ends up kind of, to use the wrestling term, turning heel in this way. And I think because of the fact that it is James Reimer, who has been perceived as a good guy, maybe in one particular market more than others, this resonates with a lot.
This is why, to go back to Ian's original point, this is why we have to keep writing about it. We have to keep this in the spotlight so people keep seeing, frankly, how, like, younger fans in particular keep seeing how absurd this is, how ridiculous it is that you would be so against wearing a freaking rainbow on your jersey. Like, we need to keep it in the spotlight. We need to beat the dead horse, not for the current group of NHLers and fans, but for the next one. We need to show them that these are the outliers. This isn't the mainstream anymore. 30 years ago, this was the mainstream. Now it's the outliers. And your generation, the next one, is going to turn them, into complete pariahs. That's what we need.
It's a rainbow and a transgender. It's like all, I mean, fine. It's more than a rainbow, as I mentioned before, but like, I don't know. I don't see the issue with wearing something like this for like 20 minutes during a warm-up.
Bare minimum. Like, we're asking
for a
somebody to do
warm-up.
the bare minimum. That's it. But hey, look, I think, like we said, we've probably exhausted this. I think
That's fair.
fans are probably, it's funny because I think you're right, Laz. Like, your column, it only serves to reinforce people's beliefs, right? It's only through that kind of education. And anyway, it's a complicated thing. And I thought your column was so good this weekend. You as you do sometimes I just love to think of Laz, whether it's about Chicago or this or any kind of these social issues. I like to think of you at your computer, just kind of angrily, pecking away at the
Russo
keyboard.
talks about the night that Rocky Wirtz yelled at me. Russo talked about just he's never seen someone hit a keyboard that hard in his life.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, you've got certain.
I just want to write silly stories about, like, smelling salts and guys changing their clothes a lot. I don't know how I fell into this world.